こんにちは、ハリケーンフットボールです。今回の教材は、イズユナイテッドの田中碧に関する動画です。リーズユナイテッドは、2位のシェフィールドユナイテッドとの天王山で、89分の田中碧の劇的な決勝ゴールで勝利していました。リーズファンが興奮しているのは想像通りですが、今回はザ・スクエアボールのチャンネルから、試合後に田中碧の決勝ゴールの素晴らしさについても語り、田中碧はリーズユナイテッド史上最高の補強だとも話します。実際どのように話しているのかチェックしてみましょう。
But then a couple of really good away wins, then the two comeback wins against title rivals.
Exactly.
It's one of the best spells of Leeds games I can ever remember in terms of both results and just for the drama of it and how much it's all meant. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, we were saying, George, on the match ball after the game on Monday, like it feels like something's happening at the minute, and I think it's important that we enjoy it, because I had a conversation with Ali earlier this season where we were saying the lack of jeopardy was almost weird at times, and I think we hadn't fully come to terms with how stratified the league has become. Because on your most recent Monday show, you're an Oxford fan. You went to the Hawthorns to see Oxford away at West Brom, who I will ask you about actually in a few minutes because they're our next opponents. But in that show, you said, you know, you went to the loo a few minutes before half time and you had that dilemma of, do I go back to my seat for 6 minutes here or just get in the queue for the bar? And you broke with tradition and went to the bar because you knew.
Yeah.
And it was because of the absolutely glaring difference in quality between West Brom, who are sort of 5th, 6th neck of the woods, and where Oxford are. And then we feel like we are streets ahead, probably, at least mathematically, of West Brom. So I think it's taken us some time to get our heads around what the Championship has become versus what I think we remember it as being last season. And even the Bielsa promotion season was a lot closer than this. I think we were on the same points as Sunderland are currently, or thereabouts, in that season where we won it.
Yeah, and we had West Brom and Brentford were very much around our heels as well, weren't they, at that point? Even though we were on the verge of pulling away, it felt like it was only actually till relatively late in the season that we did kind of create a big gap.
Has it become that stratified?
For sure. I mean, I think the gap now between Leeds are quite a weird case in themselves, where there's, I think, a very strong argument to be made that they were one of the top 2 teams last season who, for various reasons, didn't get over the line, in part because of just an incredible season from Ipswich, and then just a really bad performance at Wembley, which I think it feels to me like Daniel Farke and Leeds learnt a lot from, because I think there were massive similarities, especially in the Sunderland game to the Wembley final against Southampton. But that day you didn't like scoring and you couldn't find a way through, whereas both in these last 2 games you found a way to make that territorial and possession dominance count. But normally when a team who comes down, you know, isn't able to bounce back up, that they're picked off and they get weaker season on season. And obviously Somerville moved on, but it feels to me like Leeds just strengthened in terms of players brought in. And, you know, I'm sure you guys have spoken at length about Tanaka being probably one of the best buys ever. I mean, in terms of the money spent and the quality player that he is, I thought he was absolutely unbelievable on Monday night. Like just inch perfect in everything he did in possession. I thought the finish for the goal, the header, was much better than it'll get credit for, because he had to basically get it past the keeper and over the defender at the back post. And he did so brilliantly. You know, the team, to me, this side feels stronger than last season, and that's rare. So to have a parachute payment team who come down and then improve, having not stayed up, is what I think sets you apart from those that have come down. And also, frankly, it's a pretty weak bunch that came down. You know, the fact that it's Burnley and Sheffield United, who to my mind aren't particularly good, you know, relegated Premier League sides. You compare them to Leicester last season. Obviously, what Burnley are doing from a defensive standpoint is incredible. It just means that you're just clear of everyone else, and then there are issues in the rest of the league where, because teams with parachute payments generally come back up again, what you're creating now is an environment where there aren't that many teams in receipt of them, which means that therefore the gap between those who've just come down and the rest is even bigger. So it's a bit of an issue and it's a bit of a worry. Like, I really hope that if and when Leeds get promoted, you're the team that buck this trend in terms of the struggles to come back, because it's not particularly healthy and it's not particularly fun just seeing, I mean, this will be the second year in a row where the 3 teams who get promoted come back down again. And that just creates a massive gap between those left to the Championship and those who they've got to compete against coming down.
Yeah, it just makes football less interesting and less fun, doesn't it? You need to feel like you've got a chance. That's the whole point of what being a football fan is predicated on. It feeds on your hope, doesn't it?
And there's an element where, you know, we're lucky enough to go to the playoff final every year. And every year, you see the League Two fans celebrating at the end, and you can see them challenging in League One. You see the League One fans. I was one of them last season. It's going to be tough in the Championship, but there's also precedent for teams doing okay when they go up. You sit there and you watch, the Samson fans last season going bananas, and you sit there thinking, "We'll see you in 12 months." And they probably know it as well. It's so hard. And in a way, nights like, I'd have done anything to be in the away end as a Leeds fan on Monday night. It's moments like that are so special in terms of promotion season, when you know that it's going to be really, really tough and there might be few and far between the year after.
Yeah, last night, just before I went to bed, I watched the last sort of 15 or 20 minutes again from equaliser onwards. The time I spent most on was that header. And actually, you're right about how good that cushioned header was. Under those circumstances, a minute from the end to win it against the second place side. And it happened completely instinctively by Tanaka, but there's just something really magical about all that. But the main thing I was looking at, I kept running it back, and I must have done it about 15 or 20 times. I'd run it back to the corner being taken, but then I'd watch different parts of the crowd, both the away end and also, via Schadenfreude, the Sheffield United fans. And you can see, when they all kind of go, they almost throw their arms down in frustration, like an angry toddler, that kind of thing. And then there are people who are up and out of their seats and walking towards the exits before that ball has even been kicked out of the back of the net. You just know, you're like...
I saw a great clip, I think it was on Twitter, with someone filming, because obviously away fans at the bottom, home fans in the upper tier, and they were filming Celebrate, and they turned the camera, and you can see a Sheffield United fan trying to almost grab the phone off them because they're so annoyed. And it's just the whole scene of it is just brilliant in games like that.
And I did watch that away end with envious eyes. I've been in away ends where it goes absolutely bananas like that, and it is something special. And I watched that and I thought, yeah, I would have loved to have been in that away end. But then again, having got Sunderland the week before, we were saying on the show, I think it's it's up there. I think in some of the best ever. It's in my top 5 ever. I think that just the nature of it and what it symbolised. I think, but to do that twice in 2 weeks, it's a bit much, isn't it?
It's been quite intense, hasn't it?
Yeah, but it's been lots of fun.
You've missed an opportunity to talk about Tanaka anyway.
No, I spotted him very early, so I feel like I've said all my. The joke here, by the way, is that it was on his first sub appearance for 5 minutes, and I said he looks really, really quality, and I described him as a generational talent, tongue half in cheek.
Wow.
It turns out he's absolutely brilliant.
Spot on.
But
Do you remember as well? Do you remember when you had the injury crisis early in the season? And I remember we had so many Leeds fans messaging us being like, "You're so positive about Leeds, but we've got Rothwell and Tanaka are only two centre midfielders," as if they were like two kind of League One players, and then it turns out actually they're both brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, Rothwell was very much an afterthought of a signing, even though he came in quite early. We were all like, oh, well, he's just a bit of a squad filler. And I think he's addressed this himself, hasn't he, in recent interviews. So he's been one of my favourite players this season. And I think, again, you've spoken about it on your show, just where he picks it up and just runs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that you play Gruev as often at the moment rather than playing it feels like in possession, your ball progression with Rothwell in the team is so much stronger. If anything, you'd think you play Tanaka and Rothwell to start and then bring Gruev on if you're defending a lead. You've lost the last 2 games 1-0 with Tanaka and Gruev on the pitch, and you've won them both 5-0 in aggregate with Tanaka and Rothwell.
It's a good shout, that, actually. But although Farke does seem to be conservative with these things, doesn't he? He doesn't like to give too much away. He prefers structure and order. But you're right, though. That does go out the window somewhat. Your game plan goes out the window when you find yourself going 1 down. I think that the changes and putting Rothwell on, definitely drove us on Monday.
I think it's definitely made a difference this year as well of having those options, because last year it was Kamara, who would never, ever shoot, never really move the ball forwards, Gruev, who did the same, and Ampadu, who is the natural holding midfielder. So we were rotating between the 3 of them all the time, and it was all much of a muchness, really.
The number of times we had groans where you'd see one of them pick it up and you'd think, either run with it or try and pass it between those 2 players in front of you to your friend who's in front of you. And they didn't. They'd turn and pass it back, and it just lacked that. But I think that's been one of the key things. I don't know about you, Michael, just based on what you said there, George, about us as probably being a better side. I think we're definitely a more balanced side. I think we've got more quality spread across the rest of the team, and more attacking threat as well.
Yeah, and I think with the players we sold as well, we were able to maybe bring in these players because we've sold essentially a right back, as he was for us, for 40 million, which is not a £40 million right back coming out of the Championship is not something that happens very often. And I understand Gray isn't a right back, well, it turns out he's a centre back as he plays for Spurs. But I think his ceiling is obviously incredibly high. So is Ruter's probably. But how much they actually added to the team versus the players we've been able to bring in instead, I don't know. I think there's certainly a strong case to say that Tanaka and Rothwell have made more difference than those two did last year.
Yeah, and more impact on the wings as well. The options we've got out wide, George, are scary. And we've said so many times, like, it must be such a pain in the arse when you're a fullback and you've spent 60, 70 minutes defending against, Dan James and Mana Solomon, and then on comes Willie Nonto and or Largi Ramazani.
Yeah, for sure. But and having that multiple threat, like last season, again, going back to, I promised I did watch more Leeds last season than just the playoff final, but going back to that playoff final where it was Kamara and Gruev in the middle. And again, you really struggled to progress the ball effectively rather than just being a pretty one-dimensional attack, just giving the ball to someone on the left-hand side and being like, come on, Crescencio, do what you've always done this season and cut inside and try and score. Whereas now it feels like your threat is way more kind of multifaceted, where you've got, obviously Solomon on the left kind of doing a bit of a Sunderland impression, but often getting on the ball a bit higher, I'd say, but still that kind of creative force who can go on the outside, but also likes coming onto his right foot. Dan James, who's been just a much better player this season. He had a pretty good season last season, but in my mind has to be in the conversation for player of the season in the Championship. Even Aronson's come in, I guess, and offered something a bit different. There's no doubt that Jorginho Ruter is a better player than Aronson, but for whatever reason, his kind of relentless running and pressing has probably got the best out of Peru. And then, as we say, with Tanaka coming in to midfield and knitting everything together, it's just there may not be the stardust, I guess, from last season, but as kind of a well-oiled machine and a multifaceted, there are different ways to attack and maybe it means you're harder to play against, coupled with the fact that from a defensive perspective, especially at Ellen Road, you barely concede any chances, let alone goals, which makes it a pretty good platform for these players to thrive in.
次は解説です。いつも言っていますが、アクセントはそれほど強くない一方で、ボソボソ話したり、話すスピードが速すぎたり、難しい表現を随所に使われたり、バックグラウンドがわからないと理解できないような話も少なくないので、英語上級者にはすごく良い教材だと思っています。今回もなかなか便利な表現や、英語らしい表現、知っているとネイティブの会話がわかりやすくなるような表現も多かったですので、本日の解説をチェックしましょ
う。You went to the loo a few minutes before half time.
ルーはイギリス英語でトイレを意味するカジュアルな表現です。アメリカ英語のバスルームやレストルームと同じ意味ですが、日常会話ではルーがよく使われ、特にイギリスやオーストラリアではトイレに行くという場面で一般的に使われます。フォーマルな場ではトイレットやラバトリーの方が適切な場合もあります。
You went to the loo a few minutes before half time. You went to the loo a few minutes before half time between West Brom, who are sort of fifth, sixth, neck of the woods.
ネックオブザウッズは地域、近所、地元を意味するイディオムです。直訳すると森の首ですが、ここでのネックは細長く伸びた地域を指し、そっちの地域はどうのように親しい間柄の会話で登場します。また、業界や分野という意味でも使われ、ビジネスシーンでも応用可能です。
Between West Brom, who are sort of fifth, sixth, neck of the woods. Between West Brom, who are sort of fifth, sixth, neck of the woods. So I think it's taken us some time to get our heads round.
Get one's head around は難しいことを理解する。状況を把握するという意味のカジュアルな表現です。直訳すると頭を回すという意味になりますが、実際には頭の中で整理して理解するというニュアンスで使われます。
So I think it's taken us some time to get our heads round. So I think it's taken us some time to get our heads round. Has it become that stratified?
ストラティファイは層に分ける。階層化するという意味を持つフォーマルな単語です。日常会話ではあまり使われませんが、学術論文、ビジネス、データ分析などでよく使われます。ストラティファイの名詞形、ストレティフィケーション、階層化もよく出る単語で、社会の格差を表す、ソーシャルストレティフィケーション、社会の階層化という表現は非常に重要な言葉です。
Has it become that stratified? Has it become that stratified?
So to have a parachute payment team who come down.
パラシュートペイメンツは、主にサッカーのプレミアリーグにおける降格補助金を指します。パラシュートという言葉の通り、急落、降格による財政的な衝撃を和らげるための支払いで、通常、降格クラブは3年間にわたってプレミアリーグの放映権収入の一部を受け取ります。ビジネス用語としては、役員退職時の高額な退職金を指すこともあります。
So to have a parachute payment team who come down. So to have a parachute payment team who come down.
Is predicate.
プレディケートは文法、論理、ビジネス英語でよく使われる単語で、動詞としては何かに基づく、前提とするという意味で、be predicated on の形でよく使われます。名詞としては文の述語、主語の説明部分を指し、英文法で重要な概念です。
Is predicate.
The Samsung fans last season going bananas.
Go bananas は大興奮する、激怒する、理性を失うといった強い感情の爆発を表すイディオムです。直訳するとバナナになるですが、語源ははっきりしないものの、猿がバナナに興奮する様子から来ているようです。実際には理性を失う、大騒ぎするという意味になり、スポーツ観戦やコンサートで観客が大興奮するときや、怒りでブチギレるときに使えます。カジュアルな日常会話で頻繁に登場するので、同じ意味のゴーナッツやゴークレイジーと一緒に覚えておくと、ネイティブの会話をよりスムーズに理解できます。
The Samsung fans last season going bananas. The Samsung fans last season going bananas, and they might be few and far between the year after.
ヒュー&ファービトインは、めったにない、ごく稀であるという意味のイディオムで、何かの頻度が非常に低い、機会が少ない時に使われます。少ないという意味のヒューと、間隔が広い山原を意味するファービトインの組み合わせにより、数が少なく、間隔が広い、つまり、めったにないというニュアンスになります。ビジネスや日常英語のどちらでも使われる便利な表現です。
And there might be few and far between the year after. And there might be few and far between the year after.
And also, for your Schadenfreude, the Sheffield United fans.
シャーデンフロイデは、他人の不幸を見て喜ぶ感情を意味するドイツ語由来の単語です。害や損害を意味するシャーデンに、喜びを意味するフロイデという単語の組み合わせで、他人の損害を喜ぶことを指します。英語では、そのまま、シャーデンフロイデとして使われ、ビジネス、スポーツ、政治、SNS などの文脈で登場します。日常英会話ではあまり使われませんが、ニュースや SNS、批評的な文章で見かけることが多いです。
And also, for your Schadenfreude, the Sheffield United fans, and also, for your Schadenfreude, the Sheffield United fans are like an angry toddler, that kind of thing.
トドラーは、1歳から3歳くらいのよちよち歩きの子供を指す単語です。よちよち歩くという意味の、トドルという動詞が語源で、まだ歩き方が不安定な時期の幼児を意味し、ベイビーより大きく、チャイルドやキッドより小さい年齢の子供に使われます。親や保育士、子育てをしている人との会話で役立つ単語でしょ
う。Like an angry toddler, that kind of thing. Like an angry toddler, that kind of thing. And tongue half in cheek.
タングインチークは、冗談めかして、皮肉っぽくという意味の表現で、昔のヨーロッパで皮肉を言うときに、舌を頬に押し込む仕草をしていたことが由来とされています。タングハーフインチークはそのバリエーションで、完全な冗談ではなく、少し本音が混じった冗談という意味になり、タングインチークよりも、冗談の割合が少なく、少し本気が混じったニュアンスがあり、誰かが冗談を言っているけれど、完全に冗談とも言い切れないような状況で使われます。海外ドラマや映画の皮肉っぽいセリフにも登場するので、リスニング力を鍛える際にも役立つフレーズです。
Tongue half in cheek. Tongue half in cheek.
It was all much of a muchness, really.
Yeah.
オールマッチオブアマッチネスは、どれも似たり寄ったりで大差ないという意味の表現です。マッチオブアマッチネスだけでも同じ意味で使えますが、オールを加えることで、すべてが大差ないという強調が加わります。商品、人のスキル、選択肢、状況など、比べても違いがほとんどないときに使います。特にイギリス英語でよく使われる表現なので、海外ドラマやニュースを理解するのにも役立ちます。
It was all much of a muchness, really.
Yeah.
It was all much of a muchness, really.
Yeah.
It's way more kind of multifaceted.
マルティファセティッドは多面的な、多彩な、多角的なという意味の形容詞で、マルティとファセットが組み合わさり、多くの側面を持つというニュアンスになります。 才能のある人、複雑な問題、幅広い戦略やアプローチを表す際によく使われ、例えば、多彩なリーダーや多角的な解決策のように使用します。ビジネスやアカデミックな英語でもよく使われる表現なので、トイックやニュース英語に役立ちます。
is way more kind of multifaceted. Is way more kind of multifaceted. We're kind of doing a bit of a, you know, a sample impression.
サンバーは暗い、憂鬱な、沈んだという意味の形容詞で、雰囲気や出来事、人の表情や気分、色調などが重苦しい、落ち着いた、暗い時に使われます。例えば、サンバームードで沈んだ気分や、サンバースーツで地味なスーツのように使われます。特に葬儀や深刻な場面など、厳粛で静かな雰囲気を表現するときによく使われる単語です。ビジネス英語やニュースでも出てくることがあるので、覚えておくと役立ちます。
Kind of doing a bit of a, you know, a sample impression. Kind of doing a bit of a, you know, a sample impression.
いかがでしたか？もちろん移籍金が安かったからという加点もありますが、それでもリーズユナイテッド史上最高の補強だったと話されるのは、これ以上ない褒め言葉ではないでしょうか。最近は日本人の活躍が多すぎて、こういう称賛も毎日のように聞いている気にもなりますが、今の日本人プレイヤーの活躍が実際にそれだけすごいということでしょう。まだまだシーズンは終盤戦に入ったところですが、残りのシーズンももうちょっとだけなような、少し寂しい気持ちもすでにし始めているんですが、残りのシーズンもまだまだ活躍してもらえることを期待し、楽しみにしたいと思います。本日もご視聴いただきありがとうございました。またすぐにお会いしましょう。